The next chapter is called Beginner's Mind. It starts with the quote: In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. When I was much younger, I was always embarrassed to say I don't know. I felt ashamed because I saw my ignorance was as a deficiency, a weakness, and yet I knew I didn't know, and I didn't want to misrepresent my position, so I said nothing. In retrospect, I realized that admitting I had something to learn is one of the most mature and enlightening stances I could take. Beginner's mind refers to the practice of approaching a situation with an open mind, a vulnerable heart, and a willingness to learn. It invites curiosity, is detached from a particular or anticipated outcome, and engenders a humility deep enough to foster learning. When we approach life with beginner's mind, we learn to be strong enough to say, I don't know, I'm not sure, and I can learn more. Many people I grew up with, especially those involved in organized religions, always seem to have it all figured out, and they act as if there's nothing left for them to learn about their beliefs. They spend they spend our conversations espousing their opinions, white knuckling their preconceived notions, and insisting on the rightness of their position. Not only did I envy these people, I was in awe of them. They seemed content in their knowledge and secure in their position, and I desperately wanted to share their confidence because finding answers has been a guiding principle of my life, and I, too, wanted to know. But as I matured, my philosophy matured with me. I realized that not knowing, or at the very least approaching every situation without assuming I already had all the answers, typically resulted in not only a greater learning but also a deeper one. I began to look differently at the people who I thought had it all figured out. They suddenly seemed stagnant and rigid, and when they were forced to learn something or change their position on a long held and cherished belief, they experienced a personal crisis, which caused them visible stress. Eventually, I decided I would rather not know everything and be surprised by the things that I learned about life. We often become so accustomed to our rituals and ceremonies that our stagnation becomes habitual, and then, if we aren't careful, we feel as if we are done learning. I remember saying the Lord's Prayer for the umpteenth time when I stopped one day and asked myself, "What am I really saying?" I had recited the prayer since I was a child, but not once could I recall bothering to question its meaning. With a beginner's mind, I stopped and broke it down line by line and tried to make sense of it, learning what it actually meant. Not only did my understanding of the prayer deepen, but my overall spirituality did as well. Consider the rote way the Pledge of Allegiance is said in schools. What if teachers and students stopped and asked themselves, what am I really saying? What does indivisible actually mean? How could a beginner's mind help us better understand this statement of unity? As educators, the people who are supposed to have all the answers, adopting beginner's mind can have powerful implications. I was once tutoring a student for the SAT, for example, when we encountered a small conflict. The SAT required a 25-minute timed writing essay, and my student insisted on only using one piece of supporting evidence per paragraph. I told him the expectation was two, and his score would be higher if he used multiple um, examples. As the tutor, the learned one, I was indignant that this young upstart thought he knew more about writing and standardized testing than me, a seasoned veteran with both private tutoring and classroom experience. The following week, however, I checked with my school's advanced placement teacher who taught SAT prep classes, and she said that the College Board's position was that one piece of supporting evidence per paragraph was enough if it was properly developed. At our next session, I explained to my student that he was right. I learned something new, which never would have happened had I stuck to my position as the expert who knew everything and had nothing left to learn. In the classroom, the beginner's mind philosophy allows you to embrace an open mindedness and vulnerability that will improve both the quality and, more importantly, the depth of learning that occurs for both you and your students. It can influence the way you design and implement your lessons, and free you to admit that you are not the gatekeeper of all knowledge. This freedom enables both you and your students to enjoy the adventure of exploration and discovery that comes with learning. Adopting the liberating stance of not knowing opens a myriad of possibilities. Openness combined with curiosity allows us to see more clearly, hear more accurately, understand more fully, and risk more freely. Unrestricted by what we think we know, we are more inclined to try and less inclined to judge ourselves so harshly when we fail. So here's your teacher assignment for today. It says, think of the last time you learned something new and then reflect on the following questions. How did you approach that situation? What was your perspective? What were you thinking? How did your outlook in those circumstances differ from times when you felt like you knew what you were doing and had already garnered some experience? What would the benefit be if you had entered into every situation as if you were a novice, as if you had something to learn? What then? So you can go ahead and write those questions or answer those questions in your journal.